Hey guys, welcome back to another Sunday video where we talk about trade setups for the week ahead. And this week should be an interesting one. There is actually a good bit of volatility that is to be expected with core PCE numbers coming out. You've got some stuff from inflation statistics from the Bank of England. The Bank of Japan is also set to speak, which all of those things could introduce some pretty good sized volatility in most markets, whether you're trading indices, currency pairs, etc. With that said, I am still long the S&P 500 trade. I've been talking about this one for quite some time, and at this point, it has been over a month and like 15 days since I entered this trade, which is a very long duration trade compared to my average hold time. Usually, trade for me is like 1 to 3 days on average. Like it's really not this long usually. But what's happened is I've taken this initial trade and I've trailed my stop loss several times along the way here, and now at this point my stop is trailed all the way up to this point. This trade at this point is, well, you can see the initial risk was much smaller than what it is now. And so you can see it's floating like a 7-to-1 risk reward trade or something like that. It's been absolutely crazy. Full transparency, if you've been keeping up with the channel, you know that before that I was very early trying to catch bullishness on the indices, which was a pretty costly drawdown for me. I actually put out a video yesterday that will tell you all about the the ups and downs of my trading account. I put a video that is my full year-long trading performance. So if you haven't seen that, make sure to go check that video out after you watch this one. So in terms of the S&P 500, I'm staying bullish unless we break support, and I'll show you that the trailing stop is really on the 4-hour chart here. You can see we put in this really strong upward push, and so my stop is below that level. If it gets trailed out, I'll be out of the S&P 500. Another trade I'm in, I'm currently long pound USD, and this one, I am still, holding this trade, but it's come back a lot on me. This is one of the not so pretty parts of trailing stops. So obviously with the S&P, it looks beautiful, but here's a situation which might be pretty painful for me. I caught a really good move on the pound USD, but I've trailed my stop loss behind market structure here, and it does seem like price still has a little bit of short-term room to come down. I'll hold the trade as long as it holds that 61.8 or the 50%, somewhere in this region. If we hold this area, great. I'll stay in my pound dollar signal. But the idea here would be as long as we don't break this support structure. If that breaks, then I'll be trailed out for a small profit. So a little bit frustrating because, again, this is trailing stops 101. Sometimes you catch a great move, but because trailing stops means you don't take profits when it's up, it can be sometimes very frustrating. Regardless, let's take a look at the dollar index, and I want to point out something about the dollar index. We'll take a quick look at the COT reports here. This can be a really useful indicator to what big money is currently positioned on and doing with their money. So I really, in terms of net positioning, this is kind of a good, I like to think of this as like a long-term signal. This is for free, available on our website. If you head over to a1trading.com, you can get this information. The second half is not free. This is reserved for our supporters who purchase a copy of our software. And if we're looking at this, you take a look at the US dollar, for example, overall, it's still very bullish. And we could take a quick look and see where the USD was this week. I actually haven't even looked at this. So I mentioned this first half of the screen up there, that is pretty good for longer term signals, I would say. This gives you an idea of overall net positioning, and these change very, very gradually over time. However, what's not so gradual is the week-to-week money flow, which can be very, very telling as to what money is doing on a shorter term basis, which if you're a trader like myself, this is usually where things get more interesting and more valuable. And check this out. The US dollar got sold hard. And this is actually great confirmation as I've been bearish on the dollar for a little while. So this is nice to see some shift. But again, this is why I say, the top chart here is not enough. Yes, this is still useful information, but if you looked at only this, you would say, oh yeah, USD, they're really long. But then if you missed looking at the latest flow, USD sold, right? Look at this. The far right will give you the net change week to week. We can see a 4.56% shift in the bearish direction. Now, what makes up that? Well, they shrunk their long contracts by a little bit, but really they picked up 10,499 short contracts. That's pretty significant. I'm sorry, they didn't pick that up. They picked up 2,244. Their net now sits at 10,499. I'm looking at these. I reversed those in my head. they picked up 2,244. That's still a significant shift in the bearish direction if you're watching USD. Now, noticeable also, gold is sold. SPX, this is a little cautionary for me, sold, but NASDAQ up and US 30 up. So 2 out of the 3 indices seem to be bullish week over week. So that kind of keeps me at a standstill with that. GBP, if you're watching the pound, look at this big increase in the pound. And this is great for my bias on that pound USD position I showed you guys. Again, I like to look at the net week-to-week flow. If you do want a copy of our software, like I mentioned, you can actually get a significant discount. We're doing a holiday sale right now. If you would like access to the Edge Finder, click the link down below in the description and use that promo code that you see on your screen right now, YTVIP. If you punch that in at checkout, you'll get a significant discount as a YouTube subscriber. So thank you for watching. And again, that will get you that. So let's see, what else can we look at in terms of top setups? There's some things here. I want to go ahead and just remove the neutral readings for a moment. So we have some bearish. I don't really trade the Nikkei, so this one's not super relevant. I also don't really trade the DAX too frequently, but I am confident to still see the S&P, Bitcoin, NAS, US 30 on the bullish, and in fact, even these two being very bullish. I like to see that as I am an index bull. So if I see those things doing well on the overall scoring of the Edge Finder, then that's confidence that I like to have. Now, real quick, let me just recap. If you're newer to the channel, the Edge Finder basically sorts through a ton of market data, everything from inflation statistics like CPI, labor statistics like NFP, interest rates, economic statistics, and it computes from those data points a general bullish or bearish bias using its underlying algorithm that our team has constructed. So I know that was a lot, but basically this tool helps us to spot fundamental bullish or bearish setups, and then we use technicals on the chart to actually set up positioning. So we'll take a look at the dollar index on the daily chart. And to me, this still looks intact. This is still a downtrend that seems to be playing out. We were really, really right last week about being bearish on the dollar. When I say we, Frank and I both were very bearish. I was long pound USD. Frank inside of the signals group went short dollar yen. Beautiful trade that he had. I'll show you that just while we're on the topic so I don't miss it. So we'll go to Forex trades. Yeah, he sold dollar yen at just a wonderful time right before the big Fed stuff. I also was, like I said, long indices, but also I've been trading pound USD, which has been going really well. So yeah, we're overall, we've been having a really, really good last couple months. If you would like to join us, that is also available in the description. But in speaking of dollar yen, while we're on the subject, Frank asked me, do you think I should trail stops further? And based on, the fundamental story, and honestly, Frank and I are both very bearish dollar yen, and for a good reason. I think the Bank of Japan, when you look at the Japanese yen versus the dollar, the Japanese yen, they're actually looking to raise rates. Whereas the dollar, the Fed is now talking about cutting rates. So that by itself is a new trend that I think is unfolding on dollar yen, and it has legs for a while. So I like the bearish side of dollar yen. I think it's a very clear fundamental story right now. And for me, that's going to be predominantly a bearish setup. Pound USD, quite the opposite, right? Bank of England looks to be lagging in the rate cut talks, while Fed is leading that charge, it seems. Well, not leading it, but it's one of the major central banks talking about rate cuts already. So with that said, again, I like my pound dollar positioning. I would like to see us break back through the highs. If that does happen, I'll look to trail a stop further. For those of you guys who are in the group, we'll be watching out for that. That'll be my cue to probably trail stops further. If you're watching things like Euro USD, Euro dollar kind of hit our target that we talked about on stream this week. 1.10 did get tagged. It's pulling back, and that's probably fine. In my opinion, the euro dollar uptrend is intact unless we break this daily level of support at 1.075. So what I'd say is, if you're a bull, if you're a momentum bull, like if you're looking for breaks and pullbacks, that could be something to watch out for this next week. And if you don't mind sitting through ranges, perhaps you could look for that pullback to 1.075. But that's my personal opinion. I think overall, the idea is euro dollar looks bullish until proven otherwise. Right now, the Fed just, again, the dovish shift is really strong, and I think for now the dollar index should go lower. We'll see if I'm right about that. I have been so far, but again, I can always be wrong. This is financial markets in the day. They're very hard to predict. And just a disclaimer, as always, it's always in the description, but this is not financial advice. I'm not here telling you what to do with your trading account. I've got my own to worry about. You do your own due diligence. Let's take a look at gold while we're on the topic of the dollar stuff. Gold, in my opinion, in my view here, we're due to go higher. And we'll see if I'm right about this, because the concept that I'm going off of is, okay, we've now got a Fed that's talking about rate cuts. Inflation continues to trend lower. Those two things by themselves really lend a more bullish gold market in my view. Now, you've obviously seen that initial pop off of all that news, so the market would agree. Now there's this pullback happening, so I think that could be a nice opportunity to continue the bullish trend. Fundamentally, in my view, gold should go higher. But again, fundamentals can change, and so if they do change, we'll adapt. But for me, overall, again, a pullback to like the 61.8% retracement, that is a top setup for me this week, watching gold on the long side for that secondary chance to get long on that pullback. So we'll see if I can get that entry. That's one that, like I said, I'm personally watching. Oil is an interesting market as well. Here's price dropped big, pulled back here off of the idea that rate cuts could stimulate global economy a little bit, and so maybe demand comes back in at some point. For me, I still think there's a lot of supply issues. So overall, this is kind of a mixed market. I don't have a signal from the Edge Finder, so there's not really a setup for me here, but I'll continue to watch it close. In terms of other markets, we went through all the major currency pairs here. Let's talk a little bit about the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ has been on fire recently, and many people are, kind of fighting this trend. It's an interesting time. When you get these sort of moves, you get euphoria from the bulls, and you get absolute, frustration from the bears, the perma bears. If you've been on Twitter, which is a scary place in the financial world, but Twitter is full of, strong opinions, as you can imagine. A lot of the perma bears are very frustrated by this rally, and a lot of the bulls are admittedly getting obnoxious, and I am a bull, so that euphoria actually makes me a little bit nervous. Like I said, I am long S&P 500. I've still got this trade going, and it does make me a bit nervous, to be completely honest. Everyone pounding the drums, declaring victory. I don't necessarily love to be, kind of in that picture in the same camp. I like to buy markets when there's a little bit more balance. Right now, the bulls, the euphoria is very, very loud. And so I am cautiously continuing to hold my long position that I've been in. But when I bought it, oh my gosh, it was the opposite. Everybody thought the stock market was, this was one big bear market rally before we head back to the all-time, or not all-time, but the 2022 lows. So we have not seen that, but the bulls definitely are a bit concerning me as we go into the new year with so much confidence. You got to be careful on that side. Sentiment is a real thing. On all markets, but US 30, last one I want to cover on the indices. Actually, I have one more that I'd like to discuss. US 30 absolutely running hard here, and again, a little bit of euphoria coming in probably. But the Dow actually hit an all-time high. This last week we closed significantly above the all-time high. We're well into the 37,000s for the Dow. That's the US 30 for those of you guys who are using Forex brokers. But the idea here is this is not one I want to short. This is not one I want to try and go against, because the shorts have been getting killed for a long time here. It's been a rough ride if you've been trying to short this market, and it's personally not something I ever like to short. I very, very infrequently will short indices, because again, stocks, they make money. They tend to, over the long term, go up. So by default, it's a hard thing to short. Sure, there are great shorting opportunities, especially if you're more of a day trader, but as a swing trader, I typically stick on the long side when it comes to these things. SPX, like I said, last word on this one, I'm still bullish, but there is one market that I want to talk about. I've sold puts on the IWM. This is the Russell 2000. I sold puts on this a couple days back. Those puts are if you're not familiar with selling puts, the idea is essentially you're selling someone else the right to buy a put, which is a bearish play. So somebody else wanted to be bearish. I sold them the right to do that. I collected a premium to allow them to do that, and it does look like their put will likely expire worthless. And I do sell options on a consistent basis. If you're not already inside of our group and you would like to learn about options, I do a very simple put selling and covered call strategy, the wheel strategy, if you're familiar with it, very, very frequently. I sold puts, like I said, and I think at this point it's collecting about $1,200 in premium. Yeah, so if you'd like to pause the video and try and look at this a little closer, the idea is essentially I sold someone else January 5th, strike price 179 puts, and these ones are doing quite well so far. So likely that I will collect the full premium without having to buy the shares. Anyways, Russell, I am bullish on this. This is small caps. These companies, these are not as, of course, they're not like the Apples and Googles of the world. These are smaller companies, still good-sized companies, but much smaller. And these have just been really beaten down. They have not seen the same recovery that the NASDAQ and the Dow has had. Now, I've been really early on the Russell. Let me be clear. I've been bullish on Russell for some time. So my idea to be bullish on this has been really early. I've been bullish most of 2023. So for the most part, it's gone nowhere on me. However, recently, I've sold puts throughout most of this period and have made some pretty good money on the Russell just by selling puts and covered calls. I am bullish. Like I said, I've sold puts. I think we have room to go higher. I think it's time that we break out of this. And if we stay in this kind of rate cut optimism cycle, I think the market's going to move more into Russell. And I personally think it has the potential to outperform next year compared to like the S&P or the Dow, etc. So I'll be watching the Russell next year a lot. I'll probably be trading it considerably. I've traded it the last 8 months a lot. With my option strategy, I do love to sell puts and covered calls on the Russell. Like I said, I have done that for some time. I've also done it on the Dow DIA is the ETF that I trade. If you're wondering why I trade ETFs, just a heads up, there are links in the description. If you're a US person and you want to trade things like the Dow, you want to trade things like the S&P, we can't trade CFDs. These over here, these things that I'm talking about, NAS, US 30, SPX, we actually cannot trade those things as US people. I look at them because they're just a reflection of the futures contract. They're very smooth, but really when I'm taking trades, you can see here, I'm trading VOO and SPY. These are the S&P 500 ETFs. So I just trade ETFs. IWM is the Russell 2000 ETF. There is a broker called WeBull down below in the description. If you sign up using that link, you'll get a nice sign up bonus. I think that there's you get free shares when you sign up using that link. So check it out if you're a US client. If you're not a US client, you'd like to trade these things, there will be brokers down below in the description as well to get access to those. Again, heads up guys, if you do want a copy of our software, the link will be down below in the description. If you want access to our VIP group where you can get access to the trading signals, then make sure to use the promo code down below in the description to get that considerable discount off of anything in our group or our software. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great week ahead.